So, do you think people's personalities are affected by when they were born?
Yeah, I do.
Are you stupid?
Am I stupid? You're stupid.
No, you're stupid.
You're stupid.
No, you're stupid.
There's only one way to settle this.
In order to answer our question, we surveyed 165 people around Grant to see if there was a correlation between the season you were born in and whether you like your coffee or tea, iced or cold.
To determine this, we used a chi-squared test for independence at an alpha value of 0.05. Our categories for the survey were spring, summer, fall, and winter. We classified these seasons as spring, March through May, summer, June through August, fall, September through November, and winter, December through February.
Whoa! I've changed bodies. After collecting our data, we were able to confirm that the 4 assumptions needed to do a chi-squared test for independence were met. First, our variables were categorical as opposed to numerical. Second, our observations were independent of each other, meaning one observation doesn't affect another observation. Third, our variables were mutually exclusive, meaning an individual cannot have more than one birth date, and an individual cannot prefer both iced and hot coffee or tea. Lastly, all of our expected values were at least 5, and none were lower than 1. This means that we were able to conduct a chi-squared test for independence.
One of our biases with data collection was that we surveyed people on a particularly hot day, which might have made them more inclined to choose iced drinks over hot drinks. We also used convenience sampling to collect our data. Hey Navin, could you fill out my survey? One possible source of error is that we didn't have an option for people who didn't like coffee or tea.
We collected our data using a Google form. In this form, we asked students whether they liked their coffee/tea, hot or iced, and what birth season they were born in. As stated before, we grouped each birth month into 4 groups. One thing we made sure to do was require that students log into a Gmail account in order to respond to our survey. This ensured that no one could respond to our survey more than once and prevented our data and results from being skewed. In addition to our 2 main questions, we also asked students to respond to several other questions in case our collected data did not meet the assumptions for a Chapter 10.3 test for independence. In this case, we would have had to modify our focus. We collected a majority of our data on Thursday, April 27th during 3rd period. As stated before, we were only able to collect data from people that were readily available to take our survey, which is why convenience sampling was one of the biases to consider. To do this, we walked around the halls of Grant asking people if they were willing to fill out our survey. We also asked certain classes of students and friends to respond to our survey. After exporting our data to Google Sheets, we noticed that a small percentage of responders did not fill out the questions we were focusing on. This is why we had to remove 4 of the responses from the original 165 that we collected, giving us a total of 161 usable responses. We used Google Sheets to create a pivot table of our 161 usable responses. Not only did this allow us to see the distribution of data, but it also allowed us to create an expected values table with the totals. As you can see, all of our expected values are at least 5. The final step for us was to plug our values from the observed and expected tables into our Chapter 10.3 Google Sheets and complete our analysis. As we were researching our question, we started to come across studies on our topic of birth seasons. One study that we thought was particularly interesting was a study carried out by statisticians at Hanyang University and Kongshu National University in South Korea. The statisticians conducting this study found that males born in the summer and winter tended to have more extravagant personalities than those born in autumn. We were thinking this could connect to our own experiment because you could argue that iced drinks sold at coffee or tea shops are more extravagant and often more expensive than traditional hot beverages sold at coffee or tea shops. We thought this would cause winter and summer birth dates to prefer iced drinks, but our results did not show this.
For our chi-squared test for independence, we came up with the null hypothesis that preference of hot versus cold coffee or tea and birth season are independent or unrelated. Our alternative hypothesis was then that preference of hot versus cold coffee or tea and birth season are dependent or related. This was our claim. So after entering our collected data into Google Sheets for test of independence, we received a critical value of 7.8147, which was then placed on the graph as shown here. The region was then shaded after this value to show where our level of significance was located on the graph, this being 0.05 and the rest of the graph therefore being 0.95. Then, we also received a test statistic value of 2.1382, which was then also placed on the graph. So since our test statistic of 2.1382 was less than our critical value of 7.1847, it does not fall in the shaded region. Also, we calculated a p-value of 0.5442 on Google Sheets, which was greater than our alpha value of 0.05. This means that we have failed to reject our null hypothesis. So with the decision of failing to reject the null hypothesis, we can conclude or summarize that there is not enough evidence to support the claim that preference of iced versus hot coffee or tea is dependent on burst season at an alpha value of 0.05.